All right, Red, so what are we going to be talking about tonight?
We are going to talk about Texas independence and was there a U.S. conspiracy for Texas independence?
A lot of conspiracy theorist people out there. I hope they join in with this because.
So Tony, do you think? Lois is here too.
Hey, Lois.
So those that are here, do you think that Texas independence or the fighting for the Texas Republic, was it a conspiracy, or are we just full of it? Ooh, Wes, put your clothes on.
Hey, I'm getting hot in here. All this conspiracy talks make me hot. Something like that. No, I think I'm getting old. I'm having like hot flashes or something, Red.
You're too young to be going through menopause.
Well, you never know.
Okay.
My body might be saying it's done, dude. It's over with. Well, Lois, I don't know how to say. I don't know if y'all have a term for hi in Minnesotian.
Well, she did say howdy.
She did, and that's her trying to reach out to us
in Texanese.
In Texanese, and try to be a little more friendly, I guess. All right, so compurity theory.
Is that like computer?
Yeah, sort of like it, just a little different.
Oh, okay.
So conspiracy theory. So Red, what is give me your hypothesis. Jesus, it's going to be a long evening.
So it's you tonight that can't speak.
Me tonight that can't speak. Last video it was Red over there, but tonight Bill he can't say. What is the theory?
English, please.
What is the theory?
The theory is that the U.S. government was actually involved in a coup, or like a undisclosed event to take Texas for themselves. And this is part of, what did I call it? Manifest Destiny. Before Manifest Destiny was the word for Manifest Destiny.
Before it was like the coin phrase of the era.
Yeah.
Showing Lady Liberty across the United States on the wagons
saying westward bound.
Okay.
Even though
right.
West would be that way, actually.
So, when do you think this conspiracy starts?
I think it actually starts after the Louisiana Purchase, 1803. When we were fighting for or looking to be able to receive Texas and Florida and what we consider Spanish West Florida as part of the whole overall purchase, and Spain says, oh, well, we'll give you this little piece of land that borders Mississippi River. And of course that little piece of land was several thousand miles of land, so I'm not talking about just a little itty bitty piece, but the U.S. was hoping for more, and when they didn't get it, they just decided to play dirty.
Well, I thought that was the whole reason for the War of 1812.
Well, the War of 1812 was to show England that we weren't just spoiled little children that needed a spanking, that we were actually young adults by that time, and that we could give the spanking back.
Well, I agree with Red that there is something amiss here, and I started to kind of come across these little tidbits years ago, but then it's really raising its evil little head as we are trying to research for other videos.
Right.
And I started realizing that all the major players in Texas's independence, or Independence Trail, or the battle for independence for Texas, have certain common things
And it's not
in their past.
We're not even looking at what we say is the Texas Revolution, like 1835. We're looking years before. We're talking a 35-year battle for Texas, and I think it's all a U.S. coup. I think it was something that was put on somebody's plate 35 years before, and that we finally made it in 1836.
You think that it has something to do with? You think Sam Houston was pulling the lead on that?
I think Sam Houston was definitely involved in it, but as the leader, no. He's just, he's just a piece on the chessboard. He's not the one moving the pieces. He's just a piece, and I think he knew he was a piece. And I think Sam Houston came in with one idea of taking Texas as a state for the United States, and then the other players said, "Oh, hell no, we're going to be our own country."
Okay. Makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you look at, say, Davy Crockett, Britt Bailey, Randall Jones, James Bowie, Martin Varner, Joshua H. Bell, Sam Houston, John Coffey, James Fanning, Green DeWitt, James Long, William Allen, James Westall, John Woodruff, Joseph Reeves, James Foster, Harry Munson, and Ray Phillips. What do you think all these guys have
What
in
do they
common?
have in common?
What do they have in common, Red?
They own land here in Texas.
They all own land here in Texas. They were all...
But they also were all involved in the battle, or in the War of 1812.
on the Southern Front
Yes.
in the War of 1812.
And
And every single one of those men...
either they were in the Battle of New Orleans, or they were in the Redskin Wars in
The Creek Wars?
Yeah, the Creek Wars in Florida,
Or both.
or both. Which, what pawn, or what? Oh, I wouldn't even call him a pawn. What chess piece was managing both fronts?
That would be Andrew Jackson.
Oh my goodness. So could Andrew Jackson be involved in this coup?
I thought the same myself, but...
Because it just so happens when Texas finally gets their independence, who is the president of the United States?
Could it be Andrew Jackson for 300?
Ding, 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 ding!
Yeah!
You won!
So here's where it gets kind of fishy, though. All those men that I just...
Spirits are trying to get in.
I guess. All those men that I just mentioned, I think I mentioned like 22 of them, something like that. Every one of those men were not your average grunt. They were an officer or a high cabinet member under Andrew Jackson. That's number one. The two that bring up the most interesting story to me would be James Long and Britt Bailey.
Yep.
And it's two different reasons. Well, three different reasons. So they are the first of this group of men to come to Texas. All right, that's number one. But the most thing that's got me puzzled about these two is James Long. He is Jackson's personal surgeon during the War of 1812.
And do you care to guess what family he belongs to?
What family? Don't hold me in suspense.
James Wilkinson.
Of course. Of course.
And everybody's like, who in the heck is James Wilkinson?
He's a war hawk.
Oh, well,
He is the war hawk.
he's a little more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what about Mr. Britt Bailey, though? The only thing I can find on Britt Bailey is that some people say that he fought in the Battle of New Orleans.
Okay.
Some people say that he fought before the Battle of New Orleans in the Battle of Mobile.
Okay.
But I can't find anything saying that he did or didn't, except for the fact that the closest neighbor that he has when he moves here to Texas is Randall Jones, who was a captain under Andrew Jackson during the Battle of Mobile and during the Battle of New Orleans.
Well, and you might have something going there, because whenever we look at Randall Jones and Britt Bailey don't give a flying flip about anybody, and especially anybody that thinks they are above him or superior to him, except it looks like he does give some respect to Randall Jones. They're fighting in the same battles. I can't really say that he looks up to Randall Jones or anything like that. I'm not finding anything that pinpoints of, oh, I worship Randall Jones, but it just looks like he is subservient to Randall Jones when we're looking at it with this conspiracy theory in mind.
Right.
And I would love to be able to talk shop with other historians about this that know a lot more about this or have a different viewpoint. I would love to, talk banter back and forth on, well, what about this? What about that? And they give their perspective because we are looking at it very minutely and with a theory already in mind.
Well, the theory in mind didn't come about until we were trying to figure out why Texas. And these particular names keep coming up. And so then when you start doing background research on these individuals, yeah, we all know that Davy Crockett was congressman for Tennessee. I started looking at these individual men, and I started following their trail backwards to find out, okay, what brings them to Texas.
Right.
And it didn't take me long to figure out that, okay, it's not uncommon for men at that time to all been in the same war, It wasn't like the country is...
Well, if you think about it, it was a war front on the north and on the south.
Right,
in the
fronts.
east and the west. So it wasn't like men of fighting age could just hide from this war. And it was a war for America. We're only a couple of dozen years old.
Right.
It was a great time to prove ourselves against the country that we spanked to begin with.
So, saying that all of them were in the War of 1812, that there was not a big, oh, hey, huh,
Right.
To me. It wasn't until I realized that all these men fought on the same front. And not only on the same front, but in the same battles and under the same commanders. Then you start looking into, okay, what were their ranks? Were they all just, privates out there, bullet sponges?
We were dealing with privates.
Then I realized that there wasn't a single just plain enlisted man in the bunch.
Right.
At all.
And many of these people were in some sort of political office throughout the U.S., whether it was a U.S. political office or a state political office. Why would you just up and leave your political position to go to some podunk front, some desert?
Davy Crockett was in the running for the presidency against Jackson.
Sam Houston, didn't he just leave his post?
Sam Houston was in line to be the very next president of the United States. I mean,
Britt Bailey was legislative in
Kentucky. Britt Bailey was a legislator in Kentucky in 1817, and he had been there as a legislator for the previous 4 years.
And then just all of a sudden we find him in Texas the next year?
He packs his stuff up and just bails for no man's land, Texas.
Right.
Randall Jones Randall Jones was a captain and a teacher at the Virginia Military Academy, and in 1821, he just shows up in Texas. You know, these are guys that had a lot. Jim Bowie had a merchant thing that he was doing at the time. Yeah, he was doing some shady shit on the side, but he was still...
and I think Bowie, his things dried up because he worked with Jean Lafitte and all of the pirates in southern Louisiana. And of course, after the War of 1812, you know, after that was over, Lafitte, you know, and that's another thing to bring up is Lafitte. Out of all of this, he received a pardon from the United States, and then just shows up in Galveston and becomes a freaking, what is it, governor of Galveston Island?
He takes over the whole island. For y'all that don't know who she's talking about, Jean Lafitte, he was a privateer, and he was his main mission was to destroy any combatant vessel in the Gulf, and the United States gave him a pardon for that after the War of 1812, and then he gives up his piracy to become Lord of Pirate Island, and just within earshot of people that he knew, you know.
Yeah, and Jean Lafitte, he actually had things going in New Orleans.
Oh, yeah.
Which, you know, I do understand that was eroding, but he didn't have to just, you know, drop anchor and pull up his ship and go westward. He still had a lot of political power, and he still had a buttload of money going in and out of New Orleans. He drops all of that and all of his connections to go to no man's land in Galveston at the time. Something looks fishy.
And they meet up with the surgeon, and they're gonna do like they're going. Yeah, James Bowie, Jean Lafitte, and James Long.
James Long.
They're all gonna meet up and they're just gonna take over.
It's like, hey, buddy, you know, nice to see you again. I fought with you in the War of 1812. Yay. No, there's something else going on here.
All right, well then, okay.
I think somebody is jerking their chains. They are cogs in something.
Let's get out of our area, out of the Galveston, Brazoria County area.
Okay.
All right. What about Green DeWitt? He's the first impresario behind. He's the first one that the Baron of Bastrop helps out, and in order to get his impresario ship before Austin does. And then you look at that.
And I think that is just the roll of the dice type of thing. It wasn't like, woohoo, I got it before Austin. I think he would just happen to have the balls already rolling. He just happened to be closer to San Antonio, so it was easier to go back and forth. And he already had lands established here in Texas. And Austin did not. He was still working off of a map out of New Orleans.
What about the fact that Green DeWitt was a lieutenant colonel under Jackson?
Right.
And was governor of Mobile for roughly 3 years, and then just gives that up to come here? Wasn't Jackson governor of one of those places too?
I don't know about
of West Florida
but...
or something like that.
Oh, yeah, but no, not West Florida. He was governor of Florida after the Indian Wars.
What happened with that? That didn't turn out very well, did it?
Well, no. But, you know, it didn't hurt his political career. You know, he just kept moving up in rank and eventually made presidency. I think the cards just fell that he, you know, was running the show correctly, And I don't think that he's the one, the linchpin of who is creating all of this. There's still somebody in the back end that I haven't found that is pulling all of these strings.
Well, we know it's not Moses. Because I thought it was Moses Austin also.
Okay, so you're talking about Moses Austin, not Moses in the Bible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Well, how far back do we need to go? That's where it starts getting sticky.
There for a second, a couple days, I was thinking that maybe it's Moses Austin.
No, Moses is just a little peon. He happened to be making money off of the ammunition from the War of 1812, and then he lost his shirt after that. And I think he went groveling to the right people, and they were like, "Hey, just your buddy, go to Texas, get some land."
Go find the Baron, the guy that you used to do business with.
Yeah, and I don't think it's the Baron.
Who just happens to be in Bexar, you know.
Exactly. Why is it these people just happen to be at the right place at the right time?
Okay, well, if this conspiracy theory is true, Texas wins its independence from Mexico in 1836.
Yes.
All right. Was it April 14th, 1836 or something like that? All right. So Texas doesn't become a state though immediately.
That's where things start going wrong.
If this is a conspiracy, then why wouldn't it immediately after the signing of the Treaty of Alaska, why wouldn't we head on in and start voting for our representatives to Washington and become a state?
Well, and I think the reasoning is we had to have so many, I guess, with the analogy of the chessboard, we had to have so many pawns that we were asking for pawns from all different directions. So it wasn't like just the U.S. was fighting for Texas. There was Texans. There were people that were in it for their own good. And I'm saying Texans as in people that were born here, that lived here, the Tejanos. There were more people involved in it. And in the U.S., the United States, this was like an undercover operation. So it wasn't like the U.S., went in with their bankroll and said, "Hey, I'm shooting the money around." This was all something that was hush-hush done behind closed doors to keep the general public out of it and to keep the general United States politicians out of it. And therefore, the U.S. was not in control of actually what was going on.
So you're saying, not to play devil's advocate here. Man, I am horrible tonight. Jeez. Usually I'm not the one that's stumbling over my words. For y'all that don't watch our videos very often, I don't know. I don't know about tonight. So you're saying that it's more of like a CIA, Honduras, Venezuela, early 80s kind of ordeal going on, or maybe even an Afghanistan early 90s ordeal going on, by
like special ops.
not doing it in the front waters but in the back waters, and that when Texas won its independence, the reason it didn't immediately become a state was because they had to continue that ruse up until they could...
I don't know about continuing the ruse. I think it was more of there were other people involved and they took control after the win, kind of thing. So there's a lot of what we would consider politicians here, creating the government as there were fighters. And the government creating, or the people that were creating the government they were in for it for Texas, not in for it for the United States, if that makes sense. See, Sam Houston came in with guns blazing, thinking that he was going to just present it to the feet of the United States, and oh shit, he became the first president.
And the first congressman.
Yeah.
For Texas.
Well, and I think that was just because that's who he ended up being.
Just a loser?
No, not necessarily that. I think he was just in that position. It made sense for him to be the first congressman.
He'd been there before, but
right.
So had half the other guys that were here. So, all right.
Roll of the dice, I guess. He got the right side of the coin.
All right. So, if any of y'all watching, any of y'all have any questions about what we're rambling on about, feel free to ask. It helps us.
And your opinions as well.
And your opinions also.
Are
and
we
especially,
full of BS?
Especially if you don't know whom we are speaking about, let us know, because I have no problem kind of giving you a brief bio on whomever it is that we are rambling on about. And yeah, so is that the only evidence that you've come up with that has led us down this rabbit trail of a conspiracy to bring Texas into Texas and to be Texas?
No, because all the way back to George Washington, it was a known thing that the continent of what we consider the United States now was going to be the United States. So I bring up manifest destiny again, and even though those words weren't used at that time period, that thought was already there.
Yeah.
So George Washington had that in his mind.
You think it was the Freemasons?
Ooh, Freemasons.
Everybody else wants to blame the Freemasons for everything.
Well, it might be, but if it was the Freemasons, then why did Santa Anna just hand it over? Ooh, Santa Anna was a Freemason.
Under the table. Because
Well,
it was illegal for him to be a Freemason.
Once a Freemason, always a Freemason. It's not like you can just cut your hand off and cut your ways.
That's true.
You know, you give your oath. It's like poisoning your blood. You're never going to unpoison it.
No, not going to unpoison it.
So,
Well, what about... I'm just throwing these questions out there just to kind of lighten up the conversation a little bit. But
or muddy the water.
Muddy the water, you know. Make people think a little bit. Use your thinker.
Think?
Yeah, thinker.
What?
Yeah, use that thing between your ears more than a hat rest. So, if this was a conspiracy, why would they have wanted Texas? Why were they so hell-bent on Texas?
That has been the one thing that I have been fighting with and asking the questions. You know, like even that treaty that we were looking at today.
Velasco Treaty.
The Velasco Treaty. There are 2 Velasco treaties, and
From the same day.
Yeah, from the same day. Same people are signing it. It's not like it's one. One is hidden from the normal public, and one is public knowledge. And the interesting things about these 2 treaties is the land between the Rio Grande and what's that second river?
It is the... Oh man, my brain hurts.
Something, is it Baja?
Yeah, hold on. I'll pull it up and just keep.
Well,
talking.
there's 2 rivers. You know, there's the Rio Grande, and then there's a river just north of the Rio Grande that kind of follows almost parallel. And there is a discrepancy between those 2 rivers. One treaty is saying the Rio Grande, and the other is saying the river just north of that. Well, these same people are signing it. And that is basically the land that was fought over just a few years later in the Battle of U.S. What do we call it?
It's the Mexican-American War.
Yeah, the Mexican-American War. And
it's the Rio Bravo del Norte and the Rio Grande.
okay.
And so the public one says it's the Rio Grande is the border, and the private one, which is signed by the exact same people at the exact same time, in Velasco, everything. The private one, or the hidden one, says the Rio Bravo del Norte, which is roughly 200 miles or 150 miles to the east of the Rio Grande.
So, for one, why would they have two different treaties on the same day that say two different things? And for two, why would we be fighting over desert land in the Mexican-American War? You know, I haven't found the answer to that. I've even asked, is the climate so much different, you know, in the 1840s versus today, that it wasn't actually desert land, you know, things like that. But I don't find any evidence of that. It just seems like, you know, yeah, it's fertile land, but it's still dry land. And would we really be fighting over a couple of thousand square miles, or even a couple of hundred square miles of farmland, or even ranch land?
You know, I went back so far as to the 1600s, when the Spaniards were just starting to try to conquer, you know, new territories. Here, the hell was that? Here,
Your
bugs on me.
imagination?
Yeah.
I didn't see nothing.
Tripping out over here. And they said that the land between the two rivers was uninhabitable. My goodness. Red word.
No habitation.
Exactly. And that it was like basically dead man's land there, and that the Native Americans on the other side of the river there, they were very hostile. And I mean, it goes on like that for 60 years before they come the other direction from the east and then take over that area, and they still don't build anything in that strip.
We've looked at trade routes, we've looked at missions.
There's trade routes that go through it.
Yeah.
But there is no habitation. I can't speak.
But there are missions along
the
Rio Grande, but it's on the south side. So even if we had received the land up to the Rio Grande, we're still not getting the benefits of the missions because it's still on the Mexican side. So that doesn't make sense. I haven't found any natural things that we would want to fight for, whether it was lead, copper, silver, gold. You know, there's really nothing in those lands that I can find that would create a reason why we're fighting for it so hard. And if it was such a big deal, then why did we allow it to be different in those two treaties?
Exactly. And that to me kind of it kind of throws these red flags, you know, I can't even say flags.
Red flag.
It throws these red flags up because it was to the point where I pulled up both treaties side by side and I read them line by line. And the very first thing that I picked up on immediately was that. Then there was other little details, you know, like
evacuating Santa Ana immediately versus getting him out of here at our convenience.
Right. Same thing with like the troops. You know, the public one is stating that the Mexican troops are to, without haste, leave the country immediately, where the private one is stating that they need to leave quickly, but we will the settlers along the way will help supply them with the needs that they need in order to get them home, basically. And
well, me as a settler, between the army and where they need to go, and the army shows up on my property saying, oh, you're going to give me all your food so I can go home, I would have a problem with that.
that's probably why it's the private one and not the public one.
Okay. But if it's private, then why did they put these things private? Why didn't they just not advertise the treaty itself?
Yeah.
Instead of creating a public treaty and a private treaty?
Right.
Because that just creates conflict and animosity about the border.
Right.
Was it something that was intended? Did we have the intentions of going after Chihuahua next?
Yeah.
That's a possibility, and that would have left it open, because we are talking about that land in between the northern river and the southern river that we're talking about.
It's two different states.
Yeah, that would be different states of Mexico that we would be going after. So
Right.
was that to leave us open for future invasions? And if so, then why didn't we go after Mexico totally the second go round? We would have been in a better position to do that as the United States instead of just Texas.
That's very true. That's very true. Well, I mean, do you can you think of anything else that would, this is one of those things that in my research I could justify the conquest of California.
Okay.
From Mexico to the United States, I can justify the conquest of California.
Gold in them there heels.
But not only the gold and silver.
And that a trade route.
But that opens it up for the Pacific Ocean, and that makes it to where the ports, the inland ports and stuff like that. Gotcha. I understand. I can argue about the point about Nevada. Place is full of minerals, and it is a desolate hellhole, but it's full of minerals and valuables. I can argue about Arizona. All right? Arizona, desolate wasteland, but yet once again, it's got precious minerals and it's got resources. All right? New Mexico, I don't know why anyone would fight for New Mexico, personally. At all.
I think they have silver mines.
Anyways, I don't know why anyone would fight for New Mexico, personally. But when it comes to Texas, all right?
Now, don't get me wrong. Texas, we do have quite a bit of fertile land.
We got fertile land, but you got to take oil. You got to take natural gas.
Oil wasn't a thing.
You have to take all that out of the equation.
Right.
All right. So you have to look at, say, 1600s to early 1800s mind frame here. All right. So if it doesn't have water, gold, silver, food there, what the hell are you doing?
Well, from say San Antonio eastwardly, that is all great fertile land. All throughout the northern side of Texas, there is tons of horses, wild horses and things like that. So I can see that portion of I can see going after that. Because that is, like Brazoria County, even DeWitt County, up towards, not Navasota, yeah, Navasota's part of it, but Nacogdoches, all of that, the east side of Texas, the east half of Texas is great land to grow crops on.
Yeah.
So I can see that. But why fight over desert? You know, and relatively little land in the scheme of things.
Well,
It doesn't make sense to me.
I think it's more in depth than that.
You think so?
personally. Yeah. I mean, so the Treaty of Velasco, all right, with them being two different treaties
Mm-hmm.
dictating the boundary lines, or two different boundary lines, all right? Now, it might have been a clerical error
I doubt it.
at that time. Might have been.
A clerical error is putting an E where an A goes. That's clerical error. Clerical error is not writing down two different rivers.
Well, put yourself in these men's position. All right, and if these treaties are say dictated, all right,
Okay.
they're dictated out.
Okay.
Someone's over there pinning it down. Say the guy's having a bad day like me and mispronounces this river instead of that river. You know, it says the Brazos instead of the Colorado.
Then why do we have two different ones? Why wouldn't
Because
each
they're still
copy...
going to still make it one public, one private. All right. So, and neither one of them are exactly word for word, all right, to each other.
Right.
So, then it comes time to sign. All right. There's probably a translator there translating for the Mexican army.
Okay.
All right. They're like, okay, da 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 da. All right. They're not going to read both of them. You know, they're not going to sit there and read them. They're going to John Hancock. John Henry was a railroad guy. So they're going to John Hancock that and send it on down the way. They're going to get on with their day. You know?
Okay.
And so by the time that the clerical
era?
Yeah, is found. I don't know what's wrong with me. You know what? I
Not enough beer.
I might just quit talking and let you do these podcasts.
You stop talking about history.
So anyways, by
You
the
think
time,
he can stop talking about history? I don't think he can.
probably. So by the time that it comes to fruition, God bless it. By the time people realize that the screw up happened in the damn documents, all right, that becomes an argumentable situation.
Okay.
All right. The things that we got out of this mess up, though, are Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, Wyoming, New Mexico, El Paso.
But that's what we got out of the
No.
Battle of Texas.
No, it isn't. Not if you look at the original map. The original map, we got just a part of Colorado going up. There's that nice little slender area. All that shit that way, that wasn't part of it. That was all part of Mexico. Those are states in Mexico. The only thing that we'd gotten right before Texas.
Yeah, okay. But going back to my theory of the U.S. coup, what happened after we received the Louisiana Purchase? We
got the top section, which would be, Louisiana, Missouri, Arkansas, Illinois, Minnesota. That's what we got.
But we secretly claimed all the way.
Stuff up at the top.
Yeah, but all the way to the coast.
But nobody.
And that's why.
Nobody went in that area. They only went in that area. I know I'm like doing my hands all goofy, but
the Lewis and Clark expedition, they went out secretly, or semi-secretly, all the way to the coast because
to Washington State.
Yeah, because the government had already said, "Oh, we're going to end up laying claim to this, even though we don't have claim to it yet." And then there was another expedition on the southern half that did the same thing. That went through Texas, New Mexico, all the way to California and back. And I believe that's why Meriwether was killed, Meriwether Lewis, he didn't commit suicide. He was murdered because he had evidence that the government was already claiming this, and he was fixing to expose the claim.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm just telling you that we didn't get any of that right there.
Well, show them the map. We didn't get that.
That's my crappy map, by the way.
Yeah.
But we didn't get the Louisiana Purchase.
He didn't do well in art.
The Louisiana Purchase would have been that section right there.
Yes.
All right.
Well,
Texas would have been like this. It would have been something like that. This whole section through here, we don't get until the Spanish-American War.
Okay, so he's saying the section like New Mexico, Arizona, Southern California, we received in the Mexican-American
All
War.
the square states.
All the square states.
All the states that have like square corners to them. All that shit we don't get until after the Spanish or Mexican American
That
War.
would cover like South Dakota, North
It does.
Dakota, Montana.
The
But no,
square states.
all of those we
you're
would
gonna
have
make me pull up a
received
map.
after the Louisiana Purchase.
But I'm gonna have to pull up a map.
They're not going to be able to see a map.
No, but you will be, and I can stop you. I can't stop them.
We'll talk about that later. Is there anything else that you would like to bring up with the conspiracy? My theory that it was a U.S. conspiracy for the Texas independence.
No, I think it's a good theory. I'd really like to finish the theory out, and I mean.
And what are y'all's thoughts? Am I full of it, or do you think I might actually have something going here?
Please leave your comments in the comment section below. Thank you all again for joining us. And if you have any feedback at all, we would greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you again. My name is Bill.
I'm Red.
And this has been another wonderful bit.
This is another Bill and Red's History Production. I'm Red. This is No Talking Bill.
Y'all have a wonderful evening.